Good morning, students. Oh, now it's too close. Okay, now I am ready to begin. Um, my name's Todd, and I work at the NASA IV&V facility. So I don't know how many of you is your first time hearing about a NASA facility in West Virginia. Did you know there was a NASA facility? I, yeah, most people I talk to, they say, "What? What do you mean NASA? There's NASA in West Virginia?" And I say, yeah. And they go, don't you mean Houston, Texas? I said, no. Don't you mean Cape Canaveral in Florida? I'm like, nope, West Virginia. And they're surprised to hear that. How many NASA facilities or how many NASA centers do you think there are in the U.S.? Is there one, two? How many do you think? Three? No, there's more than that. How many do you think? One? No, there's more than one. How about you? 13's pretty close. 15. So it turns out there's 9 NASA centers. And so they're all over the United States. And the biggest one isn't Johnson Space Center in Houston. It's actually the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. And that center also has several sub centers that report to them, and they're called facilities. And so the facilities do a very specialized task. And in West Virginia, we are the independent verification and validation facility. Whew, what a mouthful that is, huh? What do you think we independently verify and validate for NASA here in West Virginia? Space stuff? Okay, I guess that's right. What can you be more specific? What do we independently verify and validate? Yeah, pink shirt back there. Yep. What do you think? Science? Well, computer science, more like. How many of you have ever used a computer, a smartphone, a tablet, a game console? Okay, that's good. That's everyone, right? Okay. Now, when you turn that thing on and the screen flashes up, you are interacting with software. Do you realize that? That's what runs apps. Apps are called software. So every single rocket that launches from Cape Canaveral, every single system on the space station that helps the astronauts breathe and have food and go to the bath, everything they do is controlled by software. So have you ever had the blue screen of death on your computer? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, or I call it I have a Mac. I have a beach ball of death that just appears, and it's like, uh-oh, well, I'm in trouble now. Okay, so if your air supply depends on software working, do you think you want to have the blue screen of death when you're up in space? No. So the job of the folks here, there's 250 people who work at the NASA Independent Verification and Validation Facility, is to check the software. You guys, you do your math homework at night? You should all raise your hand. Okay, your teachers are watching. Raise your hand. Yep, we all do our math homework. Yep, okay. Do you ever have anyone check your homework? Say, hey, did I do this right? So when you have someone check your homework, they're not you, they're someone else. So they're independent. And the first thing they're going to do, they're going to verify, were you supposed to do page 42 or 24? Are you sure you got that right? So they're going to verify you even did the right thing. And then they're going to validate. They're going to go, okay, 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 plus 2 is 7. No, that's not right. They're going to check to make sure you did it correctly. So what we do here in Fairmont, West Virginia, is we check the software to make sure it was designed correctly and that it functions properly and that there aren't any mistakes or errors, because we can't afford to have a mistake. When we're launching a multi-million-dollar mission to Mars or Titan or the moon, we can't have anything go wrong. And so here, we are the best in the entire world in independently checking software. And we do that for the NASA Space Agency. So we are a facility of Goddard. Did you guys learn something today? Okay, if you forget everything else, just remember when it says IV&V, that's not Roman numerals. It does not mean 4 and 5. Please don't do that. My director gets really upset when you say, oh, the NASA 4 and 5, where's 1, 2, and 3? I don't get it, you know? So now you can say, oh, no, I know. I know because I went to NASA Kids Day. I know that that's the independent verification and validation facility. So welcome to NASA Kids Day. So for those of you who are here early and on time, welcome. We are going to have up to 300 of you. So there'll be people, there are school buses driving here as we speak, and they'll be arriving. So teachers, as students get here, we may need to shuffle a little bit and scoot a little bit. I'm just giving you a heads up. That's going to happen. That's by design, that we do the hour in the beginning to accommodate for that. After the hour, the next thing we're going to do is have you learn about STEM. Do you guys know what STEM stands for? And math. Oh, we got it right here, but we say mathematics because it sounds more like smart. Yeah, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, okay? So, but you're not just gonna sit down and listen. You're gonna get off your butt and you're gonna go to one of 18 different stations. So you're gonna be assigned to a station, and your group of about 15 to 18 students are gonna go to one station. Like you might go to over there to Deacon. Hey, Deacon. He's from Robert C. Byrd Institute, one of our amazing partners. And you're going to learn about 3D printing and use 3D pens. So if you go to that station first, Deacon, what number are you? He's 18, okay? And our stations are arranged in groups. So there's 1 through 6 is over here, 7 through 12 is over here, and 13 through 18 is over here. So, and teachers, pay attention. This is the critical element here. If you were assigned to this pod, then you stay in that pod. So if you are at station 13, you go to 14 next. If you're at 18, then you go to 13, and you stay in that cycle. Okay, so you're not going to go to every single station. We can't do that. You get to go to 6 stations in the 2 hours from 10 to 12. And at each station, you're going to learn about careers in STEM. You're going to learn about science and activities. You're going to fly planes. You're going to drive robots. You're going to launch rockets. You're going to learn the difference between a tank and a howitzer. It's going to be really cool. So that's how the day functions. Cool? All right. Now I have one more question for you. It is my job at NASA, my official job, to make sure you know what NASA is up to. Does anybody know what our big mission is? Our biggest mission, the most exciting thing we're doing right now. Yeah, over there. We launched a spaceship. We did. Do you know where that spaceship went? Not to Mars. Who said that? Did you say it? What did you say? You didn't say nothing? Okay. Moon, the moon. Whoever said moon is right, okay? We just launched the Artemis mission. Do you guys know what Artemis even means? Well, you're going to find out. So what does Artemis mean? Where are we going and how are we going to get there? So, John, turn your attention to the screen up here for a moment. I want to introduce you to our most exciting human mission, Artemis.
Artemis stands ready. Ready to turn dreams into reality. Ready to return humanity to the moon and take us further than ever before. The culmination of inspiration and innovation, of Herculean efforts and steadfast collaboration, Artemis 1 is ready for departure. And the Artemis generation is about to leave its mark.
What will be a journey of more than 500,000 miles to the moon and back starts right here at Launch Complex 39 Bravo. Although this first flight will not carry a crew, it will test every system in the deep depths of space to prepare the way for future crewed missions.
When the final go is given and the teams at Kennedy Space Center release this rocket, Artemis will roar to life and we will witness the beginning of a tightly choreographed mission.
All engine 1, 2, 1, and lift off.
The first 2.5 minutes lift Artemis off Earth and build momentum. It's another 6 minutes of pressing uphill, accelerating to orbit. This is followed by a push from the second stage to raise Orion higher.
And once all the systems are cleared to continue, the second stage will fire again and push Orion beyond the bounds of Earth. At this point, we're going to the moon. It'll take several days to reach our destination, but as we sprint across the void, many new procedures and systems will be tested and proven.
240,000 miles later, Orion will enter an oval-shaped orbit around the moon, one that will take Orion to about 60 miles above the lunar surface and then out to 40,000 miles beyond the moon. This is a distance farther than any human-rated spacecraft has ever gone before.
As momentous as reaching the moon will be, returning to Earth is just as significant and challenging. Every observation we make, every lesson we learn on this journey prepares the way for humans to safely venture out and return home. And so on its final lap around the moon, Orion will ignite its main engine, push out of lunar orbit, and begin the long trek home.
This is a spacecraft built for the harsh conditions of deep space, as well as the intensity of returning home. Nearing Earth, Orion separates from the main power and propulsion systems of the European Service Module and prepares for the final sequence of events. Entering Earth's atmosphere at 24,500 miles per hour, the heat shield endures the fury of re-entry. The air around Orion reaches temperatures half as hot as the sun, but also slows Orion considerably. Until finally, parachutes can deploy, allowing Orion to gently dip into the Pacific Ocean.
To the moon and safely home again. This is the journey of Artemis 1, and it will set the precedent for all that follows. United with partners around the world, this is the challenge we choose. To meet hand in hand, step by step, lighting the way from the Earth to the moon to Mars and beyond. We are ready.
Can everybody hear me? So, oh, you need me to stand right over here on the X? Oh, I'm on camera. Fantastic. Can everybody hear me? Fantastic. My name's Captain James Wikle. What an act to follow. That's going to be super difficult, right? I shoot cannons for a living. They're going to the moon, which is way cooler, in my opinion. I want to welcome you all to the Fairmont Armory. We are very happy to be hosting you here at the Fairmont Armory this year. I want to talk a little bit about our unit here in Fairmont, and I want to talk a little bit about things that you can do so that you can go land on the moon. And it all starts with what you're doing right now. You guys are all pretty good kids, I would assume. You're seated there and you're quiet, so I assume you're good kids. Teachers are nodding their heads no, but that's okay. I assume you're good kids, so you keep doing that. And stay in good physical condition. If you want to go land on the moon, I was just talking to Todd there, and almost every astronaut has come from the military. So we are not an end-all be-all. We're a starting point. We're a jumping off point for you. And the other thing that we'll do, who here is going to college? Now listen, if you don't plan to go to college, that's okay. But if you do, what I want to tell you is that the National Guard will 100% pay for your college. And the reason I know that is because they're paying for my master's degree right now. I have a bunch of soldiers that are going to college right now, and they will pay for your college. And the great thing about them paying for your college is that you can be in the National Guard at the same time, which means you're going to be earning a paycheck at the same time. Now, I've got a cannon in the background, right? That's a cannon. It can shoot 18 miles. Well, there's a bunch of math that is involved with making a projectile go 18 miles accurately, right? That math is literally rocket science. Okay? So if you want to do this, Artemis, I'm going to point at myself. If you want to do Artemis and you want to learn the basics of the rocket science for Artemis, we're a good place to start. We'll pay for your college, and we're local. The other great benefit of the West Virginia National Guard, anybody here from the southern part of the state? You guys from like Fayetteville, Beckley kind of area? Are you guys all from, I see, was it West Fairmont Middle? Okay, Barrackville. Okay, so you guys remember a couple years ago when it flooded over in Mannington? Okay, well, we responded to that and we helped clean up. So you're not only going to get your college paid for, but you're going to get to serve your community at the same time, which I think is the biggest benefit that the Guard has, because we don't only have a federal mission, which is to go and fight and win America's wars. We have a state mission, which is to support the people of the state of West Virginia in their time of need. In 2016, there was a big flood in the southern part of the state, and we had a huge response to that. We used helicopters to respond to hurricanes in Florida and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and we also just used helicopters in Kentucky. So we have this huge asset. So if you want to fly helicopters, you want to do applied physics, we can do it and we can help pay for it, okay? I'm going to be over there. We're going to be doing demonstrating physics directly, and we're going to be talking about it. But if you guys have any questions for me or about how to pay for college, I've got myself and a couple of recruiters in the back there that are going to be able to help us out and talk to you about how to pay to college. Now, teachers, you're not too old. Don't think you're too old. If you want your college paid for, we can do that too. Just come talk to us, okay? All right. I have nothing further. I don't have a cool video like launch to Artemis. So thank you for your time. Welcome to the Fairmont Armory. I'm going to be followed by our sponsor, Miss Roya Maher.
Can you hear me? Okay, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing this morning? Good, awesome. It's so wonderful seeing you all, and I am so excited to be part of this amazing event. Thanks to Dr. Todd and Captain Wikle for making all this happen, and all the other, sponsors. So my name is Roya Maher, and I am the president, CEO, and owner of a company called A3L Federal Works, which is located in Fairmont, West Virginia, like 10 minutes from here. What we do, we provide information technology services and engineering services, and a lot of stuff that what Dr. Todd was talking about is what we do, including software engineering, designing softwares that manage systems. We do technical training. We do cybersecurity to make sure systems are safe and nobody can hack into them. So it's really, really exciting. And my company's main customer is the federal government. So we have a lot of contracts with Department of Defense, with NOAA, with Army Research Laboratories. So it's really exciting. I am just loving every minute of what I'm doing. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a mother of 4 grown children. I'm married to a professor of petroleum engineering at West Virginia University, oil and gas and coal and all that awesome stuff. He teaches that. And I went to school. I got a degree in industrial engineering and operations research when I was younger. I got my master's, and then later on, after my kids were grown, I also went back and got a certificate in software development. Like what Todd was saying, you need, right now, this day and age, everything works by software. Everything, you need to learn how to code, how to make systems function the way they do. So I did that because I knew it will help me with my company and with my career. So going back a little bit further, when I graduated from college, my first job was working for General Motors in Michigan, and where they design, they develop, design, and build cars. And I actually worked in a factory, a huge assembly plant, where they built the biggest SUVs ever, those Suburbans. So that was my first job, and I absolutely loved it. So I continued working for different companies. I got married, I had children, but I didn't stop learning. I was, even though at some point of time I stayed home and took care of my children, my degree in engineering allowed me to go back after like 10 years of not working, and I was able to get a job, and my first job was working as a quality control engineer at NASA IV&V, where Todd was talking about. So, any degree in STEM, STEM is science, technology, engineering, math, any degree. You could study to be a nurse, you could study to be an engineer, you could study to be a doctor, a scientist. We need you. Like, if it's something that you are interested, start thinking about it right now and plan for it. When I worked for all these companies, after a while, I decided, you know what, I can have my own company. I can do my own thing, hire people, make more money, have more control in my life. So about 8 years ago, I started my own company, and I was 50 years old then. My kids were grown, so I thought, I can do it. So I did it. So I started with one employee, which was myself. I was my first engineer, and I had a contract with Northrop Grumman. And then now, after 8 years, I have 50 employees, and we are even growing faster. And it's such a good feeling to not only do something that's so important, because the contracts we have, like the one we have with the Department of Defense, is actually creating and maintaining the software for a system that helps our warfighters in other countries. And this is one of the most exciting contracts we have. So it's something that will protect Captain Wikle if he's overseas, like let's say he's in Iraq. And this contract, I want to get you excited about this thing. I don't know, does anybody know what biometrics is? Anybody? So what biometrics is a measurement that helps people identify you. So there are systems out there, and the one that we are working on actually right here in Fairmont, it's for the Department of Defense, it's for our national security, and it uses your fingerprints, your iris, your face, your palm print, and also your voice to identify you. So how do we use it for our national security? Let's say one of our warfighters, soldiers, somewhere in a country that we are in, let's say in Iraq, you find somebody, the soldier might think, this guy is a bad guy. How do I make sure he's good or bad? So we have equipment where he will take pictures of the eye, his face, his fingerprints, and the equipment, the devices, everything okay? The device will send that information to our system right here in Fairmont, West Virginia. And we immediately, it's automated. We can decide, using the system, if this guy is on a watch list, and immediately answer the warfighter, keep him or let him go. So it's just exciting work, it's important, and I am so excited that I studied what I studied, and I'm able to do what I'm doing right now. So I encourage you to consider these fields if you're interested in, and if you decide to go to college, that I hope you will consider, because it's important. And there are a couple of things that I want to tell you before from my own experience. When you are considering careers to pursue in the future, the first thing you should tell yourself is, what would I enjoy doing? Can I make a difference in the world? Do my skill sets, do what I know, what I have studied, match the job I want to do? And also, don't just think about high paying. Salary should not be number one decision maker. Think about what you can do, how you can make a difference. And something that I always tell everyone, including my children when they were growing, when you're in school, focus on math and writing. Writing is so important. It might not be part of STEM, but without it, you cannot communicate what you have discovered if you're an engineer. You cannot communicate with your team if you're a NASA engineer. So focus on writing and be good at it. And then the last thing I want to tell you is, okay, I'm old and I forget. So don't limit yourself, especially the girls in the audience. Please, don't let anyone tell you you can't do something. You're going to be as good in math and science as the boys next to you, maybe even better. So just, aim for the sky, and do the best you can, and don't let your mind and other people tell you you can't do something. And there are tons of opportunities out there. Do your best, go for them, and you run into roadblocks, just work through them and be strong. If I can do it, you can do. You all seem like wonderful, wonderful students and so polite. Thank you so much for your time. Okay?
Thank you, Roya, and thank you, A3L Federal Works, and EASW as well in the back, Ed back there, for helping to sponsor this NASA Kids Day today. Our director, Wes Deadrick, was unable to be here in person because he got, so he's gonna record a video from his home and talk to you right now and welcome you.
Welcome to NASA Kids Day. I'm Wes Deadrick, Director of the NASA Independent Verification and Validation, or IV&V program, which is located right here in Fairmont and housed in the Katherine Johnson IV&V facility. I'm so sorry that I'm not able to be there with you in person and see you take in these amazing STEM opportunities and activities. Having so many of you participate in NASA Kids Day to learn, be inspired, and find tools and resources to pursue your dreams is a real joy for me. I have 4 children myself. 2 sets of twins, actually, and we all came down with COVID over Thanksgiving, if you can't tell from my voice, and we're still recovering. So I'm sorry I'm not able to be there. I was really looking forward to seeing all of you today. Looking back, I remember being a student right here in West Virginia with a passion and interest in science and engineering. I grew up in Petersburg, a little town in Grant County, and to be honest, I never thought I would have the opportunity to work for NASA. However, here I am, serving as the director of NASA's only facility in West Virginia. My interest in engineering and science goes back as far as I can remember, and having the ability to work for NASA is a dream come true for this West Virginia boy. Sometimes trying to find the right path can feel overwhelming, to be honest, especially if you don't know where to start. But that's so much of why we're here today, to help inspire all of you, the next generation of scientists, engineers, and even astronauts, and to help guide you towards all the rich STEM opportunities, professionals, and mentors we have right here at home in West Virginia. We have summer jobs for students here at NASA. We call them internships, and we would love to have you check them out. Being in STEM doesn't mean that you have to go elsewhere to do exhilarating and meaningful work. This year alone at the IV&V program, we've continued to work on over a dozen of NASA's most critical missions, including the most recent Artemis launch. Our program has worked on the missions that make up Artemis for over a decade now, and we helped them fix over 18,000 software errors that we found in their software code, the code that is flying on those missions right now. And today, Orion, the spacecraft, has traveled farther than any other human-rated spacecraft in our history. And there's so much more that you can learn from all the exhibits, demonstrations, and people here today. I urge you to take in all of what we have to offer. Learn, pursue, and remember that you do have what it takes to make your dreams a reality. Those dreams will just not come to you, but there is nothing stopping you from chasing them, and we're here to help. The STEM fields thrive on diversity and inclusion, and we need the minds and talents of all of you with your different backgrounds, perspectives to reach the stars, and there is space for you. So thank you for being here today, and please enjoy and take advantage of all there is to offer. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Wes, our new director from West Virginia, if you didn't catch that. And so part of what we want you to take away from all of these speakers is that you can be from West Virginia and be the director of the NASA facility. You can be a female and become an engineer and run a company that is able to compete for and win large government grants and hire lots of people here in our state. So there's opportunities here at the National Guard. There's lots of pathways for you going forward. But the one thing we want to make sure you also walk away with is a little bit of excitement about one of our most recent successes. As you know, getting Artemis off the ground took numerous tries and a lot of issues. But a mission that we just completed that didn't have any issues and was a real long shot is called DART. Does anybody know what DART is? You do? You know what DART is? What's DART? Yeah. Asteroid. Yes, that's right. We hit an asteroid. And we have Dr. Nancy Chabot, who is going to join us now live from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory all the way out in Baltimore, Maryland. And she is going to join us right now and talk to you about the exciting and successful mission we just had. And by the way, momentarily, 100 more students are going to arrive, just so we know that that's about to happen. So let's give a big round of applause for Dr. Nancy Chabot.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to hear that some of you already have heard about DART. I'm Nancy Chabot. I'm a planetary scientist. So that means that I'm a scientist who studies planets and asteroids and other objects in the solar system. And so I was the coordination lead, which means I ran the large group of scientists working on this mission. And we're still working, but I wanted to share some of what's happened since we ran into the asteroid. So I have a few slides and things I was going to show, if that's good. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And go ahead and hit play. Because if you're going to talk about this, you have to start on September 26th.
Unbelievable clarity of images there. Our projected miss distance is going to be about 17 meters. Oh my gosh.
Maybe some of you watched this. Over 1 million people worldwide tuned in and watched this live. We were here at APL where I work. People were celebrating. It was an amazing moment. People had worked years to make this happen. And we have impact. There was a lot that went into this mission, and it just ran right into that asteroid.
What a team and what an accomplishment.
And it was really an accumulation of this great effort of a team coming together in order to make this happen. Next slide. But while we were celebrating, there was this little spacecraft that had been contributed from Italy, and it was taking pictures of what happened. And these are those images that came back after we crashed into the asteroid. The little Licia Cube spacecraft took these and stored them all on board and then sent them back in the days and weeks that followed. And now you can see them here today. And what you see is that the asteroid that DART crashed into, the smaller of the two asteroids there, has a bunch of stuff coming off of it, all of these streamers, all of this rock. When this collision happened, it was really energetic, and we're studying these images. Next slide, please. And here's one example of one of those images and how we're studying it, because each image, we stretched it differently inside those boxes, and you can see all of the fine, amazing detail that this Italian mini spacecraft captured about what it's like to run a spacecraft into an asteroid and what happens if you do that. Next slide. And telescopes on the Earth also looked up and caught this. This is a telescope in South Africa that was looking at the time of impact. And you can see, even here from Earth, you can see the effects of running the spacecraft into that asteroid and this material coming off the surface. Next slide. And here's a picture from one in Chile that was taken 2 days after impact. And 2 days after impact, all of this stuff has actually made a really long tail behind the asteroid now. Next slide. And here it is 12 days post-impact, and the Hubble Space Telescope in space took a look at it, and it looks like it even has 2 tails now that have formed after 12 days after the impact. Next slide. And we're still studying this. This is taken earlier this month, 52 days after the impact, and you can see this really long tail coming back from the asteroid. That wasn't there before the DART spacecraft ran into this asteroid. That tail is over 40,000 miles long, and it's stretching off into space. And so telescope here on the team, we're still looking at this and still studying it. Next slide. But really, we did this with this double asteroid system to figure out how much did we move this asteroid. And that's because there were 2 asteroids, one named Didymos and one named Dimorphos. Dimorphos is the one that DART ran into. It's about the size of a sports stadium, so less than 2 football fields in length. And the DART spacecraft came in at 14,000 miles per hour. The Italian LiCiACube spacecraft was kicked off a few days in advance, and DART slammed into Dimorphos. LiCiACube sped on by, but slamming the spacecraft into Dimorphos changed its orbit slightly. And we were able to measure how much we changed it by, and we changed it by 32 minutes, which was much bigger than we actually thought it was going to be, and a really exciting result. Next slide. And so then NASA was very excited to share this result, and I was happy to get to be a part of this, even to represent our DART team as we shared this result with the world in October. And this just shows that we were able to move an asteroid in space. And this is the sort of thing that you might want to do if there's an asteroid discovered in the future that was on a course to hit the Earth. And so it's so exciting to be part of the team that's been able to do this first thing for humanity, which is potentially protect our planets from asteroids in the future. Next slide. But this doesn't just happen on its own. Like, I can show these videos, I can show everything that's happening now, but people worked on this for years, hundreds of people, where I work at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, but also all around the country in the United States and even all around the world contributing to this. Here you can see the spacecraft start to come together, the team working on it way back in May of 2020. Next slide. And then all the electronics got put on the inside, and it started to take its boxy shape. And you can see other people who work on those components are then involved. And people come and go on this project as their parts come in and come out. Next slide. Here we tested the spacecraft like crazy, because in space, when you're hit by the sun, there's no atmosphere, so you get really hot. And when you're not hit by the sun, you're really cold, because space doesn't have an atmosphere. So you have to do this testing. We put the whole spacecraft into a chamber at APL. Next slide. And here's these giant solar arrays that were made in a company out in California. So we partner with people all across the country to make different components. And these solar arrays stretched out, and they're about the size of a school bus from end to end when they were flying in space. Next slide. This is the only instrument that was on there, that Draco camera. This camera was built at APL, and it's the one that took those same images that we were just looking at the start of this in order to do this. And, you know, it's nice to say this worked perfectly, but actually the first time that we shook this camera, it broke. It was really bad. We had to go and redesign it. This is totally normal in how things go. You need to test things, and then they're not going to work exactly perfectly, and then you need to keep working on them. And that's really what makes all of this possible, is this team constantly working for this common goal. Next slide. And here's the LiCiACube spacecraft. It showed up in August all the way from Italy, came across the Atlantic Ocean. You can see it is a small little spacecraft, but very, very mighty, took those amazing images that we were looking at a second ago. Next slide. And this is one of my favorite views of the spacecraft, because we talk about all of the amazing stuff that this was able to do and how we were able to move an asteroid for the first time. But really, this is a very human-sized spacecraft. It's about the size of a person. And this thing actually went at 14,000 miles per hour and moved an asteroid in space. It did that, but that was done by people. That was done by teams of hundreds of people working together in order to make that possible. Next slide. Had a beautiful launch from SpaceX, Falcon 9 on the coast of California in the Vandenberg Space Force Base. Also more people involved in order to make that happen. It was a beautiful launch. Next slide. And then it cruised around in space, and here again are those final images, a countdown clock in the bottom left going on right there. You can see about 3 minutes to go, and you're seeing these asteroids for the first time. This was an amazing moment to be involved. We worked on this for years. We had no idea what this asteroid was going to look like. We had to target it autonomously. The spacecraft was making sure it hit the small one and not the big one. We get to see about a minute, what is this object that we've worked years in order to go deflect actually look like, and then it comes into view in these spectacular images. Everybody is glued to these screens. The team and the public and the world saw all these images at the same time. Last slide. And this is what it's like to be on a mission. This is why I went into this field in a lot of ways, is because I really enjoy being just one part of something that's so much bigger than any one person could do on their own. And I think DART's been a great example of that. And there's so many different ways to get involved in a mission like this. It literally takes all types of jobs, all types of professions, everybody coming together in order to make something like this happen. So there's a huge future out there. Space is growing. I'm really excited about what your generation is going to be able to accomplish. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you, Nancy. And I was wondering, would you be willing to take a question or two?
I would love to take a question or two.
Great. And I'm so excited we have all our AV stuff working smoothly today. So what an exciting mission. Does anybody have a question? Yes. Okay, hold on. Wait. Come up here. Watch out for the wires.
Was it stressful when you were trying to fix the technology and equipment?
It was really stressful. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, definitely something to acknowledge. And I think like any time, right, when you work with a big team of people, maybe you play some sports or maybe you have some other club that you're a part of, right? You really like working with that team, but sometimes that also can be stressful, right? But you know that if you work together well as a team, you're going to succeed and you're going to accomplish good things. And so I think even when things do go bad, the point that's important is that you've done it all as a team. It's not like one person messed up or something like that. It's like we all thought this was going to work. It totally didn't. The camera actually kind of broke and we needed to go fix it. And we brought in other people who were experts on things too, in order to contribute, in order to make it figured out. But, this had never been done before, right? I mean, this is the first time humanity has ever deflected an asteroid. And that means that you have to figure out things that have never been done before. You have to invent things that never been before. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be failures. And, sometimes things might not work the way that you thought they were going to be. And that's all part of doing things that have never been done before. So there'll be stressful times. But then there's also amazing times, like I showed on that video, where the whole team and people worldwide got to accomplish this together of what humanity can do. So absolutely stressful times, but really, really rewarding times as well.
So my name's Matthew, and I have a question. So how long did it take to build it and then get there?
How long did it take to build it?
To build it and to get to the asteroid.
Oh, to build it and to get to the asteroid. Okay, so NASA started funding us at APL to work on DART in 2015. I could ask how old you guys all were in 2015, but since 2015, we've been working on this. And then the spacecraft launched in November of 2021, so last year, and it cruised for 10 months in space after it launched in order to get to the asteroid. So there was about 10 months that it was working in space. That was really important, actually, because we had to test out the camera. And then things, even in space, don't work exactly the way that you thought they were. So we had to change how we ran the heaters on the spacecraft. We had to fix a few algorithms on board and fix some code in order to make sure that this spacecraft could autonomously fly itself to hit an asteroid. So, but overall, it's going to be about 7 years. Our team is still working. People are at telescopes. They're still taking data. We're going to keep working on this until the end of 2023. So we have about another year to go to do all the data analysis to figure out what this means, and then to help inform like what's the next thing for asteroid deflection that we should do.
Okay, Dr. Chabot, we have time for one final question. How about you on the end over here? I like your shirt, your jacket you're wearing. The old worm NASA logo.
Oh,
just,
good choice.
Say your name and your question, okay? Stand right here.
My name's Amari. What do you think the most stressful part about building and doing that entire thing was? What was the most stressful part about it?
I think the most stressful part is when something doesn't go the way that's planned. And I know that's a little bit of a vague answer, but it's also going to be this inevitable thing that happens. You cannot work on a project that's 7 years long and have everything just go beautifully for 7 years, especially if you're doing something that's never been done before. You're building things that have never been built before. So you design them, you do all your designs, you do all your math, you do all your testing and computer models, and then you actually go and try to make the thing and make it work the way that it did on paper in reality. And inevitably in that step, there's always things that come up. Maybe you can't even make something the way that you designed it on paper. Like you made your little holes too small and you can't actually drill things that small in order to make them, or they interact in different ways because of the materials that they're made out of. So I think, but the thing is that's the most stressful part, and you know it's going to happen sometime in this 7 years, probably multiple times, but you have no idea when, right? I mean, if you knew when, then you would plan for it. So it's you always have that in the back of your mind, so you're always a little bit careful about it. And people try to plan margin then, right? So it's like, if this thing is due at the end of the month, like don't just wait until the night before, like try to get it done in the middle of the month, right? So you have a few extra days, so if things do go bad, that you can still stay on schedule. So I think when things do go bad, like when the camera got vibrated, because it gets vibrated when it goes on the spacecraft to launch, so you want to test that before you just launch it and break it. Testing that's when this thing cracked on the camera, and that was a huge moment, because you're like, wow, can we build one that's not going to crack? Is that even possible? We thought this would work. Why did this happen? Can we still make our launch date? Because now we have a camera that doesn't work, and the camera is literally needed to see the asteroid and make sure you hit it. So we can't fly without that. So, but people coming together and being supportive as a team is what gets you through that.
And teamwork makes the dream work, we always say. But Dr. Chabot, I added one final question. I'm an earth science teacher, and I love this earth shirt here. I can see all the layers. So
sure.
Go ahead and say your name nice and loud and your question.
My name is Christopher, but you can call me Chris or Christopher. And I also don't sound like this in real life. I actually have a much higher pitch on the microphone. But anyway, was the ship actually made with like a bunch of like titanium, tungsten, alloy armor or whatever, so that it didn't break when it crashed in an asteroid? Or I'm guessing the more likely one is it just exploded into a million pieces on impact.
Yeah, what happened to the spacecraft? So the spacecraft is mostly made out of aluminum, because aluminum is lighter than those other elements. And when you're launching something on a spacecraft, not weighing very much is good, because then you can like shoot it off further. So a lot of the stuff is made out of aluminum and aluminum alloys. And it came in at 14,000 miles per hour and hit that rocky object. That's actually not fast enough in order to like melt it or anything like that. But we do think that some of the stuff we're seeing in those first telescopes is the fuel sort of poofing out. And after that, the spacecraft, we believe, is most likely pulverized, so broken into lots of different pieces, like you said. The Europeans are sending a spacecraft called Hera that's going to go to these same asteroids in 2026, and it's going to orbit around with them, and it can look for pieces of DART. So we think maybe there might be some pieces of like the big solar arrays that maybe they'll find, but most likely it's probably all pulverized into fine material and they won't see anything. But the DART spacecraft did what it was supposed to do, was highly successful. So we kind of celebrate that spectacular end of its doing its purpose.
Dr. Chabot, thank you again so much. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and enjoy the day.
All right, and Emily is going to help us understand where we start our hands-on